Today I'm bringing you some paranormal stories that I have found on Facebook, specifically in a Facebook group where all they talk about is their paranormal experiences. And whether you believe on this or not, on this kind of thing, I brought them to you and I know that you'll want to listen because you're curious about it. By the way, I would like to keep the authors and the Facebook group anonymous as to protect their identity. This is a Spanish-speaking community Facebook group, so hence the reason why the posts are in Spanish. I've translated them from Spanish to English, but they're originally in Spanish. Alright, so here we go, let's jump right in. I don't know what you think about this, but do you believe someone can offer their life as a sacrifice in exchange for the safety of another life? This was Mrs. Paula, my in-laws neighbor who was very loved by my in-laws and by all of my family, including my husband and my daughters. A few years ago, she became a widow. She never had children. She was a very healthy and an independent woman that did almost everything by herself. Mrs. Paula took great care of herself and did not have any underlying diseases. She was a woman with a heart of gold. She loved my daughters unconditionally. She was very affectionate towards them, and my daughters loved her so much that they called her Granny Bao. She gifted my daughters clothing handmade by her. She had learned how to sew as a young woman by working in a factory in the US. She spoiled and pampered my daughters whenever we went to visit with my mother-in-law. She would stop by and greet us. We all loved her very much. 2 years ago, my 10-year-old daughter became very ill and very delicate, on the verge of a heart attack or a respiratory arrest. I can almost assure you that my daughter was ready to say goodbye to me. Without going into too much detail, at the time, Mrs. Paula along with my in-laws were outside the hospital waiting for news on my daughter's health, hoping that she would get well soon. My mother-in-law told me that Mrs. Paula did not stop praying and asking in a whisper, "Lord, take me. My girl is still very small and I have lived long enough." My daughter was hospitalized for a week and a half. She was in a very delicate state for about 4 days. Mrs. Paula was a very religious lady who every day at 5 p.m. prayed the Holy Rosary along with my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law told me that every day, as they were both praying, Mrs. Paula would ask God to exchange her life for my daughter's well-being. Alright, so long story short, my daughter gets well and returns home. A month from then, Mrs. Paula started to feel fatigued and started developing problems in her heart. The doctors examined her and ran studies on her heart, but they could not find the underlying issue. As the brave woman that she had always been, she would tell us, "Oh, don't worry about me. I feel a little tired." But we would notice that she looked pale and fatigued. Since we were not satisfied with the first diagnosis, we made an appointment with a different cardiologist to have a second opinion, but the follow-up appointment day never came. One day she went to sleep to never open her eyes again. She had one of the most dignified deaths that somebody could have, resting in her house and in her bed with a peaceful look in her face. I don't know if it's possible to exchange one's life for another's health, but if that's the case, I'm eternally grateful to her, to this beautiful woman whom I've had the best memories of. May God have her in His glory. Alright, so right off the bat, we start with something weird, you know? Think about it. Mrs. Paula prayed, and she was very religious, and she asked, I've lived enough, so why don't you just take me and give her my health, my living days, to this young girl whom I really love. And maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's not, but who knows? What do you think? Alright, so let's jump into the next story. I will tell you about one of the many things that have happened to me. In 2013, I had my third baby. We set a date for a cesarean delivery. My mother took my 2 children to eat downtown, since there was still time until I went into delivery. I was taken to the preparation room, and I began to cry for not being able to say goodbye to them and to my parents. My baby was born. But after he was born, I suffered from a terrible hemorrhage and 3 cardiac arrests. In the first cardiac arrest, I could feel how I was fading, And the second one, it was a longer one in which I came out of my body, and I could see myself in the third person. In the third one, I saw myself how I began to walk, and I asked the doctors to tell my mom to take care of my children. I saw the doctors running. I kept walking, but this time I was in a white corridor. Next to me, there were more people walking. I asked God to let me stay and live longer on this earth. I felt that I resurrected from the dead. The prognosis did not look good. The second day, while I was at the ICU, an older doctor with white hair and a white beard came into the room to check on me. He told me, "Trust me. Have faith, everything will be fine." He was always the first one to check how I was doing. I had been in the ICU for 15 days before they disconnected me from the medical machines and transferred me to a standard basic hospital room. The day I was transferred to a normal room was the last time I saw this doctor. The next day, as I began to feel better, I asked the staff to call the doctor that had been seeing me. I wanted to thank him. They looked at me puzzled, as the physical characteristics that I had described of this doctor did not match anyone working there. They also told me that it was impossible that I had spoken to anybody, as being connected to so many equipment would have made it impossible for me to speak. Today, my baby is 9 years old. She always hugs me and thanks me for staying, as she is the one who chose me. Alright, so this is the second paranormal story. What do you think? I mean, do you think that she made it up all in her head, or do you believe in some of this stuff? Alright, so for the third story, I think it's a little bit of a funny story, even though it's creepy. Alright, so let's jump right into the next story. I can't keep quiet anymore. This thing has been happening to me for a long time. It is an inexplicable phenomenon. Since I don't believe in this kind of thing, I'm a little skeptical about the paranormal. I don't know if you'll believe me or not. There seems to be scratches in my body that I have no idea how I got them. Some will say, "You did it while you were asleep." Well, how do you explain the scratches all over the middle of my back? I am not that flexible. For the people who believe me, tell me, what do you think I should do? I am not afraid, but it is annoying that I wake up like this. Alright, so I think those might be just cat scratches, or maybe he might be a sleepwalker, and or somebody might be a sleepwalker, but it's just weird. I've never seen that. Well, I can't say that I have never seen it, but that's for another story. I don't know. What do you guys think? I feel like he has a cat, and his cat is just scratching him. And he probably doesn't remember because he's a deep sleeper. What is it called? I think it's a deep sleeper. So yeah, I don't know. That one is a little hard to believe. But what do you guys think? Alright, so this is our last story. It happened to us just today, January 17th at 5:55 a.m. My mom got up to go to the bathroom, and we were just about to get up to go do our morning chores and go to work. She told me that she sat on the toilet bowl to urinate, but she didn't close the bathroom door. She says that she saw me leave the room in the pajamas that I was wearing the night before and enter the kitchen. She screamed, "Wait for me! I'll get the coffee started." At that moment, I was still in bed and I replied, "Okay, mommy." My mom gets out of the bathroom and comes to my room. "How did you do that? How are you still here if I saw you go to the kitchen?" I had never left my room. I was barely tying up my bed. I want to ask you guys, was that a demon that adopted my human form? If so, what can I do about it? My mom gets up at night to go to the bathroom, and it must be really scary for her now. My mom and I live alone. Okay, so I did read the comments section for this last story, and I saw that a lot of people were saying that the girl in the pajamas, the girl that the mom saw twice, well, yeah, she saw it twice, she might be on her last days on Earth. So they're saying that she is going to die pretty soon, and that's what happens usually when you're about to die or you're going to die. People start seeing you twice. And a lot of people were agreeing to it. They said, yeah, that's true. Spot on. I don't know. What do you guys think? I thought that was pretty crazy because that must suck. Like, you know, if you're a believer or not, whatever. But if it was true, it must suck that your days are already counted. I mean, I know that we're all gonna die, but it must not be the best. Alright, so this is all I have for you today. If you liked this video, comment and tell me if you would like a part 2. Bye!